time for an industrial and societal panel hosted by the region of Stockholm. The city of Stockholm has high targets for improving perceived safety among its inhabitants in urban environments. And they've created something called the Senseable Stockholm Lab, where researchers from the Royal Institute of Technology and MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, join forces with city employees to develop new digital methodologies to map and understand and find ways to improve safety in urban environments. I'm really looking forward to this panel. We'll learn more about this research project, but I'll hand over to our excellent moderator, Lukas Ljungqvist, and his panelists. Welcome on stage.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today and to host or moderate this session about perceived safety in the city of Stockholm. I will start talking a little bit more about our collaboration in the Senseable Stockholm Lab and what it means to the city. So, this slideshow should be on, right? Yeah, sorry. So the city of Stockholm has, as you already heard, very big ambitions when it comes to sustainability, and safety is among them. So we want to be world leading, fulfilling the Agenda 2030, but also in fulfilling the Paris Agreement. And all the administrations in the city, they have to focus on this and work on that. And at the same time, we face a lot of challenges, urban challenges, multiple disruptive urban challenges. Climate change being one of them, and segregation another one. And safety is a one that relates to the segregation issue. We also face the effects of urbanization, adding 140,000 new housing units to the existing city. That is the equivalent of the city of Malmö, and 300,000 new inhabitants. This is also a big challenge, but it's also for us an opportunity to design and improve the city, to make it a more sustainable urban future. And to know better how to do this, we have started this digitalization and innovation collaboration called the Senseable Stockholm Lab. And the Senseable Stockholm Lab is a collaboration on research and innovation. It's pioneering research on cities, IoT, and AI. And we are developing new methodologies to kind of guide us on how to develop the city in a more sustainable way. We also hope that this collaboration will help us in creating more long-term synergies between business, academia, and the public sector. The research areas are the following: sensing the city, where we sense the city with sensors to collect environmental data to better understand how it functions. And then we have intelligent resilience, security and privacy, where we try to capture human activities in the cities. And then we have new governance with AI and big data. And this project that you will hear more about now is focusing on the two latter, where we want to understand safety and how our population in Stockholm perceives the urban environments. Together with me, I have Vania Ceccato, professor from KTH, Royal Institute of Technology, and my colleague Sofia Eriksson from the city of Stockholm. She's an urban strategist as well as me. And on the screen, I have Fabio Duarte, who is a principal research scientist at MIT, yes. And Ann Håkansson, who is the new director of the Senseable Stockholm Lab Center at KTH Royal School of Technology. And with this, I'll give the word to you, Vania, to present the work that we have done so far in the project.
Thank you, Lukas. Excellent presentation. Yes, safety is definitely one big challenge. Many people talk about safety nowadays, and they mean probably very different things. So what is safety? Safety has an individual dimension. It depends on who you are, if you are a kid or an elderly person, or you can also think in terms of safety, in terms of the environment. A well-illuminated place, how that place could be perceived during the evening or during the day. So in this project, we are more interested in the environmental dimension of safety. In this study, we actually explore a combination of data sources, including people's own perception, to capture the structure of the city and create an AI safety perception map of the city of Stockholm. And we use actually an artificial intelligence-led model to answer the question, what does make a city safe? We try to answer these questions with two other questions. One is, which are the kinds of features of the environment that makes an area safe or unsafe? But you know, safety is not only about the physical environment, it's also what happens there in terms of crime or other kinds of things that you perceive as, you know, as a threat. So the second question is, how do the AI safety scores that we would be creating related to, for instance, the kinds of things that happen there, for instance, incivilities like graffiti, littering, but also crime. So in order to answer these questions, a sample of residents here in Stockholm was asked to choose from pictures from this example that we have there, two different pictures that comes from Google Street View. They were asked to choose which area is safer. And another group was offered sometimes the same kinds of pictures, but they were asked to answer which areas were unsafer. These kinds of answers actually were fed in an AI algorithm model that would then be compared with other Google Street Views all over Stockholm and create then, as I said, an AI safety perception model of the city, as you see in the screen. In red, the places that were classified or the environments that were classified as safe, and the shades in blue towards unsafety, right? So what these results, or do these results show? In terms of built environment, we can say that low safety scores, or the areas that were classified as unsafe, were related to environments that had mixed land use, often in the outskirts, but they are often interstitial spaces, spaces between buildings, unoccupied spaces. So this is one part of the answer. We also got, as I showed in the map previously, areas that have high safety scores, and which are these areas? We have a mixed combination there. We have quite a lot of green areas with green areas, parks. We have also residential areas with particular building styles, villas, detached houses, but also inner city areas. We have also some areas that are of a typical built environment that has been built after the post-war. So again, there is quite of a mix of types of built environment that can be associated with safety, which is actually good news, especially for us that want to build new residential areas. The problem is that we are not, as planners, we want to plan and build new residential areas, but most of our work is also devoted to areas that are already there. The city is there. There is a legacy, right? And we need to deal with the city and the problems that we have in those areas. So the question is, how can we actually associate the safety scores with the areas that we already have it, and the kinds of things that happen there in terms of crime, incivilities, and so on. So the next step in our project was to do exactly that, to compare the safety score with what we normally call our ground truth. And that is the amount of crime, how people perceive risk, whether they were victimized in those environments or not, and also in terms of incivilities, right? Littering, graffiti, abandoned crimes, and abandoned cars, and so on. So to what extent the pictures that people assessed as safe or unsafe would be linked to these kinds of problems. So this was the final question we had. And the results actually show the following, that actually low that the AI safety scores were inversely related to high levels of violence, which obviously could be something that we would be expecting. But we didn't find any evidence that low safety scores would be associated with high rates of property crimes or incivilities. Another interesting result that we got was also that the results from the perception coming from visitors, which comes from the safety scores, we would call, didn't match completely with the ones of those people that were living these areas, that normally comes from the safety survey. And this is a very interesting topic, especially because we see that this mismatch is not homogeneous in space. In an area like here in Kista, we see, for instance, that there are particular microplaces that are actually perceived as very safe, and others that are unsafe. So the next step in our project is not only tease out or unpack safety in those environments that I just show you now, but also reveal patterns of perceived safety among different types of groups of people, young people, those that live in this area, those that visit on a daily basis, but also those that do not live here, but knows things about Kista, the perspective from the outsider. We are also going to see how these perceptions vary across the day and also along the seasons, because of course in a city like Stockholm there are very large seasonal variations in terms of temperature and illumination, which are really relevant when we think about the perceptions of different environments and how we can better plan those environments in the future. That's all from me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Vania. I find it very interesting. I hope the rest of you do as well. I just want to continue talking to you a little bit on safety. And you have a very long experience researching safety. Do you think that there were some results in this project that was particularly interesting compared to what you have done before?
Yes, I think that in my area, working with crime in particular, quite a lot in accidents, we always very much concentrate on the bad side, where crime is, for instance, or where poor perceived safety is. And I think this project was excellent, also to focus on areas that work. You know, what are the areas that we can identify particular features that we can replicate in the future in new residential areas? So I don't believe, or I would be naive to think that only replicating we will get a safer area, for sure. But I think we have given a step forward with this project, that we can identify particular features that are actually safe.
That sounds very good. For me as an urban planner, it's exactly what I want to hear. I think you agree with me, Sophia.
Yeah, I do.
Another question I had for you was, and all of you are, of course, welcome to answer any question you want. But Vania, I also, you showed us here that you compared the data that was produced by the AI with different ground truth data. Was there any data missing that you thought that, well, if we would have had it, the results would have been even better?
So I mean, as a researcher, we could indefinitely work with the data we have, and but I think from the data we got from AI, it was very insightful. And one of the things that we didn't predict initially is the safety along roads, because most, as you saw in the, for instance, in the map, most of the areas that were classified as unsafe were along these interstitial spaces along roads, for instance. So if I would have a little bit more time and more data, I would pick data on traffic accidents to include, to understand a little bit more about the dynamics of how people have answered that particular question. So I think I would include not only crime, but other dimensions that are also involve the concept of safety. So this traffic safety is also an important dimension, I would believe.
Yeah, I agree. The traffic environments, they have been very pointed out as the most unsafe areas in the city. Fabio, next question for you. As I said, this project has produced a lot of data that reveals kind of the human feelings about the city. Do you think that there are any other interesting research areas that we could use the same methodology?
Yes. So I think the nice part about this methodology is that first we refined a model that exists at a global scale, and we found that interviewing only people from Stockholm, we have much better results. And we also have done the same type of perception using AI for things like which parts of the cities are more exciting or boring or beautiful. And this might help the city to have an assessment not only of the cities that we usually would focus on, but also to all the streets in Stockholm. And this is another particular aspect of this work that we did with Vania, is that we have not only, because when we have the survey about fear of crime, we ask general question, okay, how do you feel in your neighborhood? But neighborhoods are kind of a blurred area, right? But with this AI, we could assess actually all the street segments in Stockholm. And this information is very valuable.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit on the difference between the global panel that you have been using previously?
Yes.
Think, yes.
So,
and the local one that we produce now.
Yes. Yeah. So what MIT started doing a few years ago is to create this panel, always comparing two images. But these images were coming sometimes from different cities in different countries, and the respondents were also responding from any country. So one example that I always use, because Vania and I are originally from Brazil, if I see one image that I know it's from Stockholm, and the same image, if you tell me that it's from São Paulo, I would probably assess my perception of safety differently. So since I don't have any reference where this image is coming from, actually my cultural understanding of space is put aside. In the case of Stockholm, what we try to do, okay, let's ask only those living in Stockholm, and let's make sure that we show images from all different neighborhoods to people coming from all different neighborhoods. Therefore, at the same time, they have a local knowledge. I know this is coming from Stockholm, but I don't know which neighborhood. Therefore, we try to avoid bias. And we saw that, okay, using the global survey, our accuracy was around 68 to 70%, which for a global study is not bad. But when we come to the local, oh, it's almost 9%. So the accuracy that we gained having this for Stockholm is outstanding.
That's also very good news. So, and it leads me to you, Sofia, because you're the one working in designing and planning for the urban environment in Stockholm. In what way do you think that this project sheds new light on safety that we can use as planners?
Yeah, as Fabio mentioned just right now, the safety survey that Stockholm City produced, is very in general. It's for an area or a district in itself. So it says how do you perceive your safety in Kista or in Rinkeby or in Skarpnäck. So it's very very in general, how do you feel in your area, and it doesn't say so much about which kind of area do you feel unsafe or safe in. So this can really help us to understand what kind of street, if it's a green street or a very hard street, just pavement, or if it's the architecture on the house, what kind of architecture feels safe or unsafe. And you can narrow it down to see the different streets instead of the whole area as a whole. So it really helps us to understand the city better and the city's different parts and how people feel in those.
Yeah. I always want to jump to conclusions. That is in my nature, I think. So when I first saw the results, I said, oh, great, now we can understand everything, right? But then you two on the research side, you said, no, wait a second. This needs to be confirmed and blah, 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 yes. So what would it take, you think, for I ask all the researchers here, what would it take to be really certain that, the average Stockholmer would agree on that this is a safe space? Are we there, or what do we need to develop, or This is kind of out of the blue, but please.
Yeah, if I may, I think one thing that Vania and I we want to continue now in the next phase is to focus on the mismatches, and I think this is something that's going back to your certainty. Rather than focus on the certainties, we first want to focus on the mismatches. And which are these mismatches? Two of them. The first is areas that the model, the visual AI model, found, okay, oh, this is a safe area. However, Stockholm survey found, oh, this is an unsafe area. The difference is that those who said this is an unsafe area, they live there in this neighborhood. They might be actually biased because they believe that their neighborhood are safe or unsafe, but they don't know that. And the visual AI is okay, oh, this is safe, and although you think it's unsafe. but let's investigate why we have such a difference of opinion. And the second mismatch is about crime and safety. We have seen areas where we have high crime rates and they're perceived as safe, and the opposite, areas that are pretty safe, no crimes, but people still feel as unsafe. So I think focusing on these mismatches might clarify what Vania was saying. Okay, what causes this perception?
Yeah, that's the thing about feelings. You don't really know why you have them, right?
Yeah. I think that there are also concrete, even if there are mismatches, which are obviously equal, I mean, they are very interesting, very informative. We see that there are common denominators that comes through the safety scores. For instance, the importance of greenery in the safety scores that were the highest is something that I think highlights the quality of Stockholm as a city compared to São Paulo, by the way, right? Which is much more dense with very little greenery, but also the kinds of planning paradigms, which are the kinds of planning models that work in terms of beauty and what people appreciate, that they might be safe sometimes, maybe unsafe, but still they come up. And I think probably for the future, we should perhaps revisit some of these, not to replicate only, but to think about what they mean when people are planning for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and about the future, the Senseable Stockholm Lab has been around since 2019, and now we are starting to scale up a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about the plans for the future?
Yes, so we will continue to do challenge-driven research, and it is on the larger Stockholm area. But we have also decided to start something called Kista Initiative. And the Kista Initiative, within that, Senseable Stockholm Lab joins forces with Kista Science City. And the aim is to start new era of research and education on digitalization and sustainable urban solutions in Kista. We are also working with combining cutting-edge research on cities, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and that is of the Senseable Stockholm Lab with the depth knowledge of the world-leading companies, which is in the Kista and in Kista ecosystem. And the Kista Initiative, the work with that is twofold. We want to create a digital testbed, and we will have a joint data repository, and we will make the urban data available for research and for education and business development. And the focus that we have here is that it is projects that we are looking at the current and futures SSL projects. And those projects should focus on area as a testbed and specifically in development use cases that is for and focused on Kista area.
Yes, thank you very much. And there is something, we have a call right now on climate, but we have also received funding from the Digital Futures to continue this wonderful project. And we will support it from the Senseable Stockholm Lab, and we're very much looking forward to the next step. So very, very briefly now, can you help us out in just sketching what you are excited about to do?
Yes, we will focus, as I mentioned before, on looking at the perspective of different groups here. And different groups, I mean the users of Kista. They can be residents, they can be those that work here. And the interaction between them and the physical environment across the day and along the seasons. We are using a number of sensors to be able to capture the perception of people here in Kista, but also the ones that do not visit or experience Kista, but have some sort of idea of what Kista is. So this is, in a nutshell, what the project is going to be.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we have to stop there. There are so many questions from the audience. Sorry, we didn't have time for those. But there's one thing I really want to ask. Did men and women agree on what was safe? Were the answers gender specific? Perhaps you want to quickly go to that one. Fabio?
Yeah, so we asked this question. We divided in age groups and men and women. And we were expecting that the difference would be higher than they were. There are a few spots that we see differences, but it's not overall in the whole city. The difference is not as we expected could be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us at Digital Futures.